Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 30 of the BadMotoGP-Show. We just finished the Cota weekend yesterday evening, and I was too tired to record yesterday, so now we are here. And quick little quick little problem we had. The continuity camera of Apple apparently isn't working anymore with Google Chrome. I had some problems today. I couldn't figure out why. But yeah, the quality of the camera of my MacBook isn't as good as the iPhone. So that's the reason behind it. I'm trying to fix it for next episode. And yeah, we're here to discuss Kota. So Keelan, you enjoyed the races.
Hello, Leo, and howdy, everybody from Austin. Well, not literally from Austin, but in spirit from Austin. Like Leo said, we are covering the race weekend from the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, and it delivered once again. We had some great races, especially in Moto3 and in the Premier class, I think. We had Crash Bandicoot galore. We had people flying out at every part of the track. We had controversy, we had drama, and we had great racing, which is obviously all we can ever ask for. I had a great time. I know you did as well. We got some great meme content, and looking forward to breaking it all down. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have to start with Alex Rins. Alex Rins had an amazing weekend. I didn't see it coming totally because he's good at Kota. We knew this, but we knew that the Honda isn't necessarily the most competitive bike, and I thought that he will be good, but I didn't think he would be that good. So, but it was refreshing. It was totally nice to see. I'm so happy for him. And I feel like we can't talk about Alex Rins when we and without talking about Pecco, because he put the pressure on Pecco, and Pecco did what he does best, win it or bin it. This weekend summed it up very, very well on what is Pecco actually as a rider. And yeah, Alex Rins, he had a good qualifying. Front row is all you want in MotoGP. It's not important if you're on pole or on second or third, but front row is basically where you want to be. And yeah, he had a great first lap, but I feel like after the first lap, everything already was sorted out from a position standpoint. There were no close battles, but he put the pressure on Pecco. He kind of got close to him, and then Pecco crumbled again under the pressure. And yeah, he never looked back. Was he with the 2 second lead or whatever. He managed it perfectly when Luca Marini came strong towards the end. And yeah, I'm so happy for him. Everybody's an Alex Rins fan, I guess. This dude is a legend. And funnily enough, he won like 3 out of the last 6 races. So yeah, this it makes me really happy that he won on the Honda now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a very fun fact for the ladies and gentlemen watching the podcast. Alex Rins is the first non Mark Marquez Honda rider to win a race since, drumroll, Cal Crutchlow in 2018. So there's a little bit of trivia for you, ladies and gentlemen. Alex wins, does it again. Yeah, it was a brilliant race, I have to say. I think what we're seeing with I'll get on to Pecco Bagnaia first before we go on to Alex Rins. I think there's a very common trend developing with Paco Bagnaia. I'm not sure if you've noticed this or not, Leo. Um, with Paco Bagnaia, when he gets out in front, if he's able to build up that 1.5 to 2 second lead, he's very much untouchable. It's very hard to get back in touch with him. But if you can keep that lead to a second or point 0.9, point 0.8 seconds, Bagnaia seems to struggle with that. When he's not able to just break out in front, he seems to struggle with the pressure of knowing somebody's very close behind him. And this is the second time in a few weeks we've seen him crack from this. And I think this may well be a pattern that could be starting to develop. From Paco's point of view, the tactic is very clear. It's get out in front, get a 4 or 5 second lead, and nobody can touch him. But what's becoming clear now, like I said, is if you can get that gap down, Paco doesn't seem to be able to deal with it very well. He seems to struggle knowing that somebody is actually on his tail and he can't just get away. And that brings me on to Alex Rins. What a weekend for Alex Rins! Not just not just Sunday's race, but also the sprint race. Alex had a brilliant Saturday and Sunday, which, of course, like you said, we are all delighted to see. Um, this was something that I noticed on Saturday as well as Sunday. We mentioned it on the Instagram Live, which, of course, we do for our sprint races. Alex Rins' tactic on Saturday was very similar to the tactic on Sunday, which is get as close to the front as possible straight away and put Pecco under pressure, make him uncomfortable, make him sweat, and make him work. Because I think Alex Rins has worked out that Pecco does not like that. He doesn't enjoy being in that kind of battle. And Alex Rins used it to brilliant effect. The bike looked really good around Cota, which not many people can say. He had a great race, not only when he was behind Pecco, but also when leading. At one point, he had a 3 second gap. I think around like the last quarter of the race, he had a 3 second gap. He finished with around a 2.5 to 2 second gap, which was brilliant. And all round, he had a fantastic race. So, proverbial hats off to Alex Rins because I'm so happy to see him do it again. He is Captain America.
Yeah, cowboy hats off. And during our IG Live, we discussed very, very much how Alex Rins is able to adapt to the Honda so much better than John Mir.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to build a little bit up on that because he is a very, very smooth rider. I told you in the IG Live that we discussed this with Jack Gorst on the Sepang review test, where he the punk test preview this way, um, where he told me what actually is going on with John Mir, what actually is going on with Alex Rins, and it's basically you can boil it down to Alex Rins is a super smooth rider. Nowadays in MotoGP, this benefits him because you have to be very careful with the rear tire, and he has been good everywhere on the racetrack, but especially towards the end of the race, it seems like Alex Rins has something up his sleeve there, which is a testament to his riding style that he's super smooth, not using the tire too much, and Jean Mir on the flip side, he's very aggressive, and apparently this doesn't work too much with the Honda because Alex Rins said after the test, okay, everything is more or less the same from our riding style from the Suzuki to the Honda, and Jean Mir said, okay, basically everything is different. And yeah, I would like to know how it developed over the first 6 races, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I think that Alex Rins is a very, very good rider who's suited to modern MotoGP in a way. And the way he approached the race was very smart because he put Pecco under a lot of pressure. He didn't have a lot to lose, but Pecco obviously has. I mean, if Alex Rins crashed out there, it would have been sad. He would have been angry, but it's not the end of the world. But Pecco crashing out when he's so head and shoulders above everybody else that he's his only real opponent at the moment is very, very bad news for him. So Alex Rins put the pressure on him and did everything he could to make him crack, and Pecco delivered again. Prosecco Bagnaia crashed once again, and yeah, he rode it home. So everything was perfect for Alex Rins, and I'm very, very happy for him that he adapts to the Honda apparently very quick. And I think that if anything is up there with Mark Marquez in the future, that Honda could seriously look at Alex Rins as a factory rider.
Possibly, yeah. I think that possibility very much could be there based on what we've seen so far. And we're only, like you said, 6 races technically in. And if this is what we're only seeing 6 races in, what could we see 16 races from now, 26 races from now? You can only see Alex Rins getting better from here. So that option very much could be there. That's a great point. One point I'd like to make about Alex Rins before we move on is actually a point that Neil Hodgson made on the BT broadcast yesterday. And it's this point that we've been talking about both on Saturday and yesterday. And it's about Alex Rins adapting his riding style to this bike. And it's an excellent point that I didn't even think of. And I've got to give Neil Hodgson credit for this. When you look at Alex Rins, maybe it's just a Cota thing, but I think it's more of a bike thing because we've seen this in all the races so far. if you look at Alex Rins and the way he straddles his riding style between the inline four of the Suzuki and the V4 of the Honda, when he approaches the corners, he flows through the corners so easily that he picks up and maintains corner speed so well compared to everybody else. He's able to just ride through the apex of the corner and use the bike's momentum to go through it. It never looks like it's any kind of effort that's exuded from Alex Rins. He's able to work with this bike and just flow through the corners and it seems like he's able to put very little wear and tear in the tires, which is a point that you made. His management of the tires is brilliant. It's really, really good. He is not hard on those tires at all. And it comes back to this thing of he's just such a natural, smooth flowing rider. And it's such a massive benefit in modern MotoGP that he's able to make this style work with this kind of bike. And I think this is the opposite issue we're seeing with Joan Mir, where he just cannot get it with that. Because he's such an aggressive rider, he's struggling to translate from the Suzuki to the Honda, which now needs a smoother rider as opposed to a more aggressive one. So with Alex Rins, I don't think there's anybody happier than us that he's having success. It's incredibly well deserved, and I hope it's sustained as well. Because, look, Alex Rins is one of the nicest guys in the paddock. We know that. And he's also one of the best riders. What did I say on the IG Live, Leo? When Alex Rins is up here, like on this graph, when he's up at the apex, he's one of the best riders in the world. And if he can sustain this, then very good things could and should come his way.
Yeah, and to build up on what you just said, the strong point of the Ducati is that they have obviously an extremely powerful engine which they can use at the end at the acceleration part of a straight, for example, and they can. Fabio said that they can manage to have so much horsepower with so little wheelie, and the bike is just so good at the exit of corners on the straight. And we saw yesterday at the sprint that Pecco flew or Saturday on the sprint, I'm sorry. Pecco flew by Alex Rins like he was on a Moto2 bike.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw the same yesterday with Luca Marini and Fabio Quartararo. The Ducati is so incredibly well balanced that it has so good rear grip, good acceleration, good top speed, and good braking stability. And if Honda can build Alex Rins a bike, which is, or build a bike in general, which is better at acceleration, better on the straights, and he can still translate his good cornering into every racetrack where there are corners, then he can be very dangerous. And I think that Honda has a lot of work to do, but maybe the new Kalex chassis, and maybe a new engine somewhat in the future, I don't know, can help him achieve this. New arrow for the wheelie, I don't know. But if they can close the gap to Ducati on acceleration and top speed and still have Alex Rins, who is so incredibly good at cornering, on the bike and make up so much time there, because he said he's making up all of his time in like sector 1 and 2, I believe, during all the S's.
Mm-hmm.
And in sector 3, Pecco was flying away from him, and in sector 4 he could catch up a little bit more. But I think that if Honda can close the gap, same with Yamaha, same but different, but if they can close the gap and use Alex Rins to have such good cornering speed and to be so smooth on the bike, just give him more horsepower, give him better aero, give him better traction out of the corners, then he can be very, very dangerous. And it's like what we saw on the Suzuki, because basically this is what Suzuki did. They gave him a better engine and gave him a super smooth bike. And at the beginning of last season, he looked like a championship contender. Then the whole shit with Suzuki was going down. And towards the end, he looked again like he's there for a championship, because he is this good and he sorted out his crashing. So yeah, I'm very happy for him. And I think if Honda can go with Alex Rins and Joan Mir in the right direction, and who knows what happens with Marc Marquez. There are a lot of rumors that he's not happy with Honda, that he wants to leave for Ducati. And I don't know what's up there, but usually when there are so strong rumors that a little bit of truth is behind it. So Honda needs to build for a future without Mark Marquez. If it's with Mark Marquez there, but just being injured, or Mark Marquez leaving for another manufacturer. And I feel like with Alex Rins, they have a very, very capable rider in their lineup who can, in my opinion, who's better than Joan Mir and who can really do some damage if he has the right bike underneath him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is a great wider point that you've just made looking into the future. I think there's two takeaways that I've taken from this weekend about Austin. The first is what I love about Austin, which is that this is one of the tracks where the rider makes the difference, not necessarily the bike. And I think this is what we've seen. Fabio Quartararo got a fantastic podium because the rider could make the difference this weekend. He didn't have to be on a Ducati to get a podium. He just had to be one of the best riders in the grid, which we know he is. The second point that I really like about Austin, and particularly as it pertains to Honda, is that this is really the first solid weekend I've seen where Honda could eventually evolve into a life beyond Marc Marquez. And what I mean by that is the points that we've just made about Alex Rins. What we have seen this weekend is that there is a clear path, a clear evolution, if you will. There's a clear evolving process where we can make the Honda better suited to a smooth rider like Alex Rins, where it's more stable, more riders can get on it, and more riders can perform with it. Whereas in the past 2, 3, 4 years, the Honda has been a Marc Marquez bike where only Marc Marquez can ride that bike and get things out of that bike. And what we've seen this weekend is that Alex Rins has done something to that bike where he can actually push the pace and he can qualify well and he can win races with it. And most importantly, he can avoid crashing on it. And I think for Honda, not only if I'm Lucio Cecchinello, but if I'm HRC, I am looking at this weekend and I'm feeling very positive heading to Jerez because I think for the first time we've seen that there is a clear possibility that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that there is a future, a good future potentially beyond being reliant on Marc Marquez. So the signs are here, and I think it could be very positive for Honda.
Yeah. And when you remember our preseason episode, I thought that Honda is actually better than most people think because last year was a very, very difficult season for them
You
for
did say this.
different
That is
reasons.
true.
And yeah, you picked Honda to disappoint. So um, are you regretting this choice already?
Yes and no. I'm gonna say no because every other Honda rider's disappointed so far. But I kind of regret it a little bit because I'm so happy for Alex Rins. You know, if Alex Rins does well, I'm happy to admit that I'm wrong. But when we look at the crashes so far in the form of the other riders, you know, Joan Mir, Taka Nakagami, I think my prediction's kind of accurate, but I've definitely missed out on the fact that it's Alex Rins riding and that Alex Rins can make a difference. So, in that respect, I think I probably have been proven wrong already. But anytime Alex Rins wins is the time I'm happy to be wrong because I wish the guy all the success in the world.
Yeah. And I would like to talk a little bit about Prosecco Bagnaia because I I can't get my head around it how he can be this reckless, how he can be this stupid, if he is the only one who can beat himself. Pecco Bagnaia goes out there and says the GP23 is the best bike he's ever ridden. It's perfect for him. It's his bike, whatever. They developed it around him. Then a minor inconvenience happens. He crashes, and all of a sudden the bike is too stable, and he would prefer a slower bike where he can feel more. I mean, the ignorance to not admit that he was making a mistake. And I mean, it's totally understandable, I guess, that he's frustrated and maybe doesn't understand what he did wrong. But at the end of the day, he's on the fucking bike. All of the other Ducatis didn't crash. So he's on the bike. He has to make the right decision. And he put this bike somehow, I don't know what happened. He probably doesn't know what happened. He put it in the wrong place in this turn two and lost the front because it's the first right hand corner in a while, because in Coda you have this long right hand corner, I believe turn 18 or whatever, and then you have the two left hand corners, the two last corners on the circuit. Then you have the start finish straight. Then you have the braking area into turn one, and turn one is also a left hand corner. So the front tire is a little bit colder, and we saw this with Pecco in Misano in 2021 when he lost the championship, for example, that he somehow is struggling to put temperature into the tire and is prone to crashing when he's under pressure, A, and B, when the front tire isn't necessarily at peak performance because it had cooled down a little bit over the course of the lap, you know? And I don't understand what's happening there. We talked this through after Portimao, where we said, okay, Pecco seems to be maturing a little bit. He was not picking any fights. And in Argentina, everything happened again. He was getting involved in a fight with Alex Marquez where he didn't have to in the sprint, but everything went fine. Then in the race, where this kind of unexpected rivalry, someone called it in the comments, which I really enjoyed. This unexpected rivalry happened again, and they were battling. He was overtaking him where there's no reason for overtaking. He lost the front. Now in Austin, no reason whatsoever to crash. I mean, there's never a reason to crash, but let's pretend Alex Rins crashed, so we would be a lot more of understanding than Pecco, because Pecco is the only one who can beat himself right now, and he's doing it right now. And he didn't learn anything from 21, where he lost the championship, from 22, where he crashed 5 times and almost lost the championship. I mean, the only reason he won the championship is because Fabio and Yamaha was struggling so bad towards the end of the season. And if they didn't, I mean, who knows what would have happened, you know? And now again, where everything is perfect for him, he can't just bring it home. And I don't understand what's the problem of letting Alex Rins go through, let him win the race, collect 20 points. Or in Argentina, why do you have to battle with Alex Marquez, who's obviously not a championship contender, even more after this season, after this weekend, I'm sorry. So you don't have to battle with him. Your only real opponent, Enea Bastianini, is injured. Marc Marquez is injured. Fabio is on a bike which has no business on being at the front. All of the other Ducatis aren't really a match for Pecco pace-wise. We discussed it with Marco Pizzecchi yesterday. Marco Pizzecchi is good, but his pace wasn't or isn't at the level yet of Pecco. And I don't understand what's the problem with Pecco to just take the points. I mean, consistency is so important, and he finds a reason or finds a way to fuck it up and blame it on everybody else but himself. So yeah, it's frustrating. And if I was Ducati, I would, I would sign Pedro Acosta.
These are the signs. No, I think you make a great point, and I want to make clear from the outset that of all the people who have a place to complain about their bike, Pecco Bagnaia is not one of those people. You cannot complain about the development of the Ducati. You've literally got a spaceship. That's a direct quote from Fabio Quartararo. You are literally riding a spaceship on the grid. You have no place to complain about the bike. Look, at the end of the day, it's an individual error. You just accept it and you move on to the next race. This ridiculous defense of I wish I had a less stable bike, but I had more feeling with it. Pecco, you have the best bike by a mile on the grid, and it was working fine before. What's different now? You know, it's just a petulant excuse, really. That's all it is. And I just wish he'd owned it and moved on, to be honest, because it's a bad look on him and it's a bad look on Ducati as well, who will not appreciate that at all. And I think this could be, I don't want to get too far into the future, but my problem with Pecco is that if he can't handle it at this point when it's Alex Rins behind him, what's life going to be like when Enea Bastianini's back, when Marc Marquez is back, and when all these other Ducatis are finding form as well? Like you said, Jorge Martin was at it this weekend. Johan Zarco was not at it this weekend. On the ideal race weekend when all these people are back and biting at your heels, how are you going to respond then if you're responding like this now? That's my concern for Pecco Bagnaia. And I think the simple reality is that he is now feeling the heat of being the number one man at Ducati. Because when you are the reigning world champion and when a team like Ducati is built around you, there is a lot of pressure that comes with that role. You are expected to win every single race. You are expected to dominate every single race, and you are not expected to make excuses when those two things don't happen. And so far with Pecco, I think he is very much struggling under the pressure. Because look, we are now in a situation in MotoGP where nearly most of the grid could win on any given weekend. This is how competitive MotoGP is. I still think Pecco's one of the top two riders in the grid with the top bike on the grid. But if you can't handle the pressure now, how are you going to handle Enea Bastianini when he's fighting you every weekend? How are you going to handle Marc Marquez doing reckless Marc Marquez things when he's inevitably back? So if I'm Ducati, I would be watching what's happened this weekend and trying to manage it, because if this becomes a persistent issue, then there will be problems there.
And you made two very important points. A, the bike and the team is built around him. So everything which what happened with the bike, let's pretend it's too stable, whatever. It's his responsibility because he is the number one guy there. He's developing the bike. He went out there and said, "This bike is perfect for me. This bike is the best bike I've ever ridden." And yeah, it's built for me, whatever. So if you want a less stable bike, fucking tell them during the tests, you know? And the other thing, the pressure, where is this pressure coming from? There is no pressure at the moment. He's making himself all the pressure in the world because, like we said, Marc Marquez is injured. He did him a favor. Luca Marini took out Enea Bastianini. He did him a favor. And Fabio Quartararo is on a Moto2 bike at the moment, and the Yamaha engineers did him a favor. So there is basically nothing to worry about. When your closest competitor is Marco Bezzecchi at the moment, then I don't understand what's his problem. Not that Marco Bezzecchi is a bad rider, but he's not Pecco at this stage of his career. Marco Bezzecchi is too inconsistent to ride for the championship. Races like in Austin, he was very lucky that all of the people in front of him crashed.
Yeah.
And he crashed himself in Portimao in the sprint, and he's not there pace-wise yet. I think in a couple of years, yes, but right now, no. And the GP23 is a better bike than a GP22. And if this man is your biggest competitor and you make yourself kind of you're painting the devil on the wall when there's Alex Marquez battling with you in Argentina and there's Alex Rins behind you. What is wrong with you? Just let him go. Take a third place in Argentina and take a second place in Austin or even a third place. I don't care because nobody is a match for him right now. And all he's doing is giving Enea Bastianini and Marc Marquez. And maybe if Yamaha figures something out, Fabio Quartararo, he's giving them and all the other riders. Marco Bezzecchi is leading the championship right now. Alex Marquez got away with a crash where he has no fault of his own, because when you talk about the championship, because Pecco crashed, and he is making all of the other riders a big favor right now, and us fans, because we get an entertaining championship. I mean, thanks for that. But yeah, I don't get it. What is wrong with him? He didn't learn from 2020 where he crashed in Misano out of the lead. I mean, it's always something, but it's never his fault. In 2021, he threw away the championship, and in 22, he almost threw away the championship. And I thought, okay, what does more need to happen for him to understand that it's better to take a second or third place than to crash all the time? And it's always the same crash. It's always when he loses the front. He never high sides, he never low sides. It's always that his front washes away. And I don't understand what's wrong with him. I don't understand why he's incapable of learning and why he's incapable of taking the blame. And it's always somebody else. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and I don't disagree with anything that you've said. I think a big problem with Pecco Bagnaia is that I think there could be a real ego problem there. And what I mean by that is, pretty much since the very first episode of this podcast, actually, we have sung the praises of Pecco Bagnaia, and we have said that on this bike, with his ability, nobody should be touching him. And the problem with Pecco is that I think he almost believes that too much himself. So when he's in a battle with somebody, he doesn't have the humility to take a second place or a third place. He's thinking to himself, this person is not on my level. This person should not be challenging me for the win. Why should I take a second or third place when I'm obviously better than this rider and I'm on a better bike than this rider? And I think this arrogance and this ego is starting to hurt Paco now because, I mean, this is the big comparison that we've made over the last year. Pecco Bagnaia, Fabio Quartararo. When Fabio won the title, Fabio had the humility to take a step back during the race and say, right, this person's battling me for the lead. Yes, they may win the race, but in the long run, I take the 20 points, I take the 16 points, whatever, and I build towards the title. With Pecco, it's kind of all or nothing, and that's becoming a real problem now because as a champion, you have, and especially now he's a reigning champion, you have to know when to push for the win and when to take a step back. And that's something he does not seem like he's capable of doing at this moment. And it is starting to really hurt him now. When Alex Rins was behind him, he didn't say, let's let Alex Rins get ahead. We'll catch him on the back straight. We'll go for the win. If not, we'll take the second place. With Pecco, it's all or nothing. And now it's starting to become nothing. And it's starting to really, really hurt him now. And like I said, when Bastianini's back, when Marquez is back, when the other Ducatis are up to speed, this will not be sustainable. It's not sustainable now, but it especially will not be sustainable when his actual rivals are circling him. So Pecco's got to get it together and get it quick, or he will be in trouble.
I have the standings right here. And Marco Bezzecchi is leading the championship with 64 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Pecco is second with 53 points. He threw away 45 points. So that means he's almost at 100 points if he doesn't crash with his closest competitor, like with 60 points. And it's absolutely crazy to me that, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that his ego problems, okay, could be true. I don't know. I mean, they're all racers. They want to win at the end of the day. But I don't understand how you are this incapable of learning, because this problem happened in 2021. This problem happened in 2022. And it's happening again. So I don't understand what's his problem. And I don't understand why he's incapable of learning when everything around him is perfect. And he is doing everybody a favor right now except himself.
Yeah, this is the thing. This inability to learn, it's not only just harming him, it's opening the door to his rivals now as well. I mean, okay, I'm not saying he's going to challenge for the title this year because I don't think the bike will allow him. But Fabio Quartararo didn't crash out with Marini trying to keep his second place. He was willing to take the third, get the podium, move on to Jerez. Luca Marini, consistent. Marco Bezzecchi, not on the pace this weekend, but consistent. And this is why Bezzecchi, I don't think Bezzecchi's lead will last, of course, but it's why he's leading the championship. It's consistency. This is what Pecco is missing, and this is something Pecco is going to need to get in order to win another title and another and another and another. It's all consistency. You can be spectacular 2 weekends in a row, but if you throw away 100 points in the next 2 weekends, what does it matter? You have to be consistent and you have to finish the race. Franco Morbidelli, who we'll get on to later, I'm sure, really happy for him. He finished P8 because everybody else crashed out. He finished the race. You have to finish or it doesn't matter. It's as simple as that.
In order to finish first, you have to finish first.
Exactly. It's such a simple saying, but it's the truest saying in the grid. In order to finish first, you have to finish first. That's all you can say.
And it's not outside the realm of possibilities that Enea Bassini is able to make up 50 points over the course of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, it's not. I mean, look, if we look at how good Anea was last year, and we look at him with the best bike in the grid this year, and the fact that Anea is generally more consistent than Pecco has been, I think there's a real possibility he makes those points up. He can make those points up as soon as he comes back. And this comes back to the point you made, Leo, and it's a perfect point that you made. Conditions are perfect for Pecco right now because all his rivals are out. They're not competing with him directly. These are the weekends or the weeks where you should be building up such a big nest egg that when Anea does come back, he can't touch you because he can't make up the lead that you've built. What you're doing now is you are keeping this race, you are keeping the title race alive because you can't finish. When Enea Bastianini comes back, he is going to be gunning for you directly. He is going to be challenging for race wins and sprint race wins. When Marc Marquez comes back, he is going to have a say in this title race because his ego won't allow him not to. So when you are Pecco Bagnaia, you have to be cleverer than this. You have to be more cerebral than this because if we look at the standings that you just mentioned, Pecco Bagnaia should be nearly out of sight but from Marco Bezzecchi already. Instead, this race is still open because Pecco can't finish the race. Pecco has got to change his attitude and his mindset, or he will leave this door open, I'm telling you.
Yeah. And you talked about Fabio. Fabio, we were always praising him for riding on this thin line on the limit where he's overriding the bike, but not too much where he's crashing all the time. This somehow goes down the drain at the moment because the Yamaha is so far behind. So it was an unusual mistake from Fabio to crash in the sprint. And but generally, this is still true. He was so incredibly good with the weapons he has at the moment
Mm.
in Austin, and it's first of all his responsibility to finish the race. He did this. Fabio wasn't doing anything stupid there, where apparently it was really easy to. And when Luca Marini flew by, he kind of accepted it because he knows the Ducati is no match for him right now. And he did a very, very quiet race, but a very good race, and finished in third. And this is exactly what makes Fabio great. And because of this, he was leading the championship last year. Because we remember the beginning of last season wasn't easy for Fabio as well. And then he kind of came into his own before the summer break. And if he can do this again, I don't necessarily think he will be challenging for the title. But there's a difference between challenging for a title and having a say in the title, you know? And like in Bastianini last year, he wasn't challenging for the title, but he did have a big say in the title race, you know. And Fabio can have a couple of very good races before the summer break. There is Jerez coming up. He's notoriously good in Jerez. He has his home race in Le Mans. He is kind of good in Mugello, except from the long straight. So I don't know, maybe the new Yamaha engine and maybe they bring something to the test to have more rear grip. But if they kind of figure out on how to make this bike work, then Fabio is such a good rider. He can disrupt the piece at Ducati pretty fast. But yeah, I don't see him winning the title, sadly. But he deserves it. But Yamaha doesn't. So yeah, I think he had a brilliant race. He had a very quiet but very smart race. Same as Luca Marini. Luca Marini did the same. And I'm really happy for both of them. Both deserves the title, the podium, I'm sorry. But I must say that during the race, I thought, I really think that Luca Marini deserves a victory. But during this race, I thought, don't you dare to fucking overtake Alex Rins. But yeah, sadly, or luckily, he didn't. Sadly for him, he didn't. But yeah, I'm happy for both of them. They're showing progress. Really quiet race, really good race. But yeah, I'm happy the way it turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really delighted for Luca Marini. Great young rider, has been incredibly consistent since he moved up to the Premier class, and he deserves his podium. He's been a very, very good rider, very consistent, stable rider, and he deserves the fruits of his labours. So I'm very happy for Luca Marini. Fabio, I am truly delighted for. We're both big Fabio fans, and the work that he's done at Yamaha is superhuman. It really, really is. And the point with Fabio getting the podium is the point that we've made with Pecco and his inability to finish. Not only riding brilliantly, because he really had no business being on the podium at all, but getting the second place, getting overtaken, and having the humility to accept the podium, the third place finish. This is, as funny as this sounds, this is what champions are made of. You have to have the non ego to be able to accept that you're on an inferior bike and that the third place finish is still a finish you can build on for the rest of the season. Fabio's had a tough start to the season, remember, but this finish is something he can build on. He can use the momentum of this. And what's interesting about Cota is on this Yamaha, Fabio's had to deal with two really long straights. He's had to deal with the back straight and he's had to deal with the start line straight up into turn one. And the Yamaha has actually handled that top speed a little bit better than I thought it would. This comes back to the new engine and such that they have. So if they can fix that, and especially I think Mugello will be a big tester because of that mile long straight going up into turn one as well. If Yamaha can actually get this bike to work and you have Fabio's superhuman ability, who knows what they can do? Do I think he'll win the title? Sadly, no, I don't. But I think with Fabio, the sort of blueprint for how to build a champion is Fabio Quartararo. Humility, acceptance of the equipment that you're on, and riding to your abilities. That is what you do. And it's something Pecco really should take a leaf out of Fabio's book and use that approach, because Fabio knows that he's got a pistol and he's aimed at a rocket launcher. He knows he can't really be in this fight, but he's still doing everything he can to get those points and to clamber back into the race. So delighted for Luca Marini, but especially credit goes to Fabio because that was a brilliant performance.
Yeah, and when you remember that Luca Marini flew by Fabio like he was on a Moto2 bike, it's still obvious that Yamaha has problems. And the engine this is sealed because they can't change it for the season, so they have to work with whatever they have. And I'm lacking understanding or understanding. I'm lacking an understanding of what's the problem with Yamaha, because it could be the engine, but it could also be the rear grip, that they are not able to bring the power to the ground, because you can have all the power in the world, but if the rear is spinning and the electronics are cutting off, it doesn't help. And also, they need to work on the aero, but you can only work on the aero when you have a stronger engine. And when you want to have a stronger engine, you need to somehow bring the power to the ground. So those are the three big issues of the Yamaha. And I feel like that, or not, I feel like it's fact that the engine is sealed for the season. They can't change it, only for next season. But they need to figure out on how to bring the power to the ground. And when they do that, on how to bring aero onto the bike. And this is the major focus point on Yamaha, in my opinion, where they need to bring something to the test in Jerez, which brings them a better understanding of how to get the grip on the rear, when grip is good, when grip is bad, whatever. They need rear grip, and they need better aero. They need to figure something out. And as far as I'm concerned, they're allowed to have one aero update, so they should come up with something good. And if they can fix those things, the future is more or less bright for Yamaha, because they have Fabio, and Fabio is still, in my opinion, the best rider on the grid.
Yeah, it's a great point to make. And look, with the technical issues that Yamaha have, these are not new issues. Okay, the engine, it seems like they found a little bit of something. The top end of the speed limit, it seems like they've cut down a bit, which is obviously good news. But like you said, the engine's sealed till next year, so there's nothing they can do there. The lack of rear grip is an issue that they had with Valentino before he retired, and everybody didn't believe him. They thought he was a crazy old man who just was blaming other things. Guess what? It turns out Valentino was right. The bike still isn't gripping on the rear properly, and even Fabio and Frankie are having those issues as well. So this is like a 5-6 year old issue. Like I said, that went back to when Valentino was teamed with Maverick Vinales. He complained about a lack of rear grip and nobody believed him. Now you have this issue and you have to deal with it. And then of course we have the aero issues, which again they have not updated in years, and now they are so far behind that they are scrambling to try and find a way of actually getting to grips with it. I mean, if we look at the preseason testing, they were trying all sorts of crazy things. They tried this massive rear spoiler. They tried no aero in the front at all. And they've basically done everything in between. So, like you said, they do have one aero update for the rest of the season. I really hope they find something, because if they can address the lack of rear grip and the aero, then the Yamaha could do something. Especially, this is the point that people need to realize: when you have a superhuman rider like Fabio Quartararo, you can get things done. It's not like you have two average riders on an average bike. You have got the best MotoGP rider in the world on an inferior bike. You update the bike and you upgrade the bike, you upgrade the results, because the superhuman rider will get everything out of it and more. So if Yamaha can actually do Fabio a service for once, they could go places, but it's all on Yamaha's engineers. Are they capable of getting it done? The jury's out on that. I don't know. But if they can get something done, if Iwata can get something done, then Fabio could lead the charge again. But you've got to help him. He's literally out. He's literally riding beyond the limits of what that bike can give him. You've got to start giving him the resources to do it properly.
Yeah, and when we talk about resources, we discussed this in the IG Live that Yamaha doesn't have a satellite team, and apparently even they won't have one for next season, which is bad news for them, because they need all the data. They need 4 capable riders, not only on race weekends but also on test weekends, and do something about it, because they they are struggling so bad that they need to figure something out for next season. Otherwise, Fabio is gone.
Yeah.
Because remember, he has a contract for this season and for next season. And if Yamaha, for some reason, fucks up this season and fucks up next season, then Fabio is gone. I mean, I would lose patience too. And I mean, maybe it would be the right move to drop Pecco and sign Fabio if you're Ducati, because Fabio is equally as good, but not as stupid. And then build like around Fabio, Enea Bastianini, maybe bring Pedro, who knows. But yeah, Yamaha needs to figure something out really, really quickly, because otherwise Fabio is gone. And I don't see how they do it without a satellite team, and apparently with a new rider next year. So yeah, it's got to be very, very difficult, but they need to figure out how to bring the power to the ground and how to use error to their advantage. That's basically the bottom line.
Yeah, it is the bottom line. And again, with Fabio, it's a very good point that you made. If Fabio does not see the improvement soon that he needs and that he has been calling for and identifying, he will walk, and he would be well within his rights to walk. The fact that he's even won a world title on that bike is still a miracle. It really, really is. And let's be very, very clear about something. When Fabio's contract is up, every manufacturer on this grid will move heaven and earth to sign him. You are extremely lucky that you have got the rider that you've gotten, Fabio. Ducati, I think, would move Pecco to get Fabio, because I think he is that good. Honda would throw whatever Fabio wants at him to get him. Every manufacturer will give him whatever he wants to get him to join them. You have got to give this guy a bike that's worthy of his talent, because he has been riding basically a Moto2 bike to the very limits of what it can do. And eventually the wheels will fall off because he can't do anything more with it. So I don't know how they do that. I'm not an engineer. I'm not qualified to say. My solution though is what we mentioned I think a couple of months ago. Bring the Suzuki engineers in, the ex Suzuki engineers in. And look, it's kind of funny, but get a fresh pair of eyes. Get a new perspective on this M1 and where it can be improved. Because I think with these Yamaha engineers, I don't think they're capable of looking at this with an eagle-eyed view and to see what can be improved. Bring in people who've worked on an inline four, who've did wonders with the Suzuki and who made it an uber competitive bike. Bring some new people in, bring in a new perspective, and take their suggestions on board. Those people did it with an inline four. They made an inline four bike competitive. Why would you not take their advice on how to do it? Have some humility, bring new people in, and see what they say. They may be able to take this bike to the next level and unlock that potential. But as it sits, I don't think Yamaha in house are capable of giving Fabio what he needs.
Yeah, let's see what maybe Jorge Martin does next year. And speaking of Jorge Martin, because he absolutely wiped out Alex Marquez in a very scary crash,
Wow.
because Alex Marquez was kind of trapped between the two bikes and the barrier was coming nearer and nearer and nearer. So it was scary. Luckily, nothing happened, or at least I'm not aware that he has any injuries or whatsoever. But yeah, Alex Marquez had a troublesome weekend, kind of vomited into his helmet on Saturday, then crashed. And now Jorge Martin took him out in in my opinion, a very ambitious move where I don't necessarily understand what he was thinking. Because when you watch the replay, he was kind of outside of the picture. And in Kyoto, you have the left hand turn one, that's a really narrow turn. Then you have the fast turn two, and he was totally on the outside at this turn two, and then turn three is the left first part of the S's. So you have to be kind of on the outside or on the right hand side of the track to get into this left hand corner. But he was on the opposite side, on the left hand side, but still slammed the bike in there and lost the front immediately. And Alex Marquez was lucky that nothing worse happened. I mean, he appears to be hurt a little bit, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, right now he doesn't have any injuries, or if he has some injuries, it's not the end of the world because he did some interviews afterwards. And yeah, so let's hope everything is fine with him. But I think Jorge Martin deserves all the criticism in the world. I mean, there's a little bit of an excuse that it's first lap and the first lap mayhem. And he was not in a position where he could make the corner, but also he wasn't in a position where he could just brake and sort it out calmly, because then he would be like last or whatsoever. So yeah, it was tricky, but he deserves all the criticism. He deserves all the blame, especially after being so vocal for a race ban for Marc Marquez. Even though I think that the Marc Marquez incident was worse than the Jorge Martin incident, but still very bad, and he definitely deserves a double long life for this.
Yeah,
Minimum.
absolutely. I mean that just goes without saying. I mean, it was just a dumbass move by Jorge Martin. Like you said, completely misjudged turn 3, was on the wrong side of the corner and slammed into Alex Marquez, who did nothing wrong at all. To be honest, I'm just glad he's all right because, like you said, that was a scarier crash than it looked. Alex Marquez was sandwiched between his bike and Jorge Martin's, approaching the fence, and thankfully, nothing worse happened. That's the only good to come out of that. But Jorge Martin, it was just a dumbass move. I expect better from Jorge Martin. I think, like you said, his only real defense will be that it was the first lap mayhem, trying to get ahead. But you still need to be a lot more careful than that. He completely slammed into Alex Marquez, ruined his race, and nearly ruined the next few races for Alex Marquez. So double long lap, absolutely. And I'm just glad Alex Marquez is all right, really, because it was a stupid move, nearly a very dangerous move, and a very punishable move.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Twitter. to see any updates on Alex Marquez, but there are none. There's just this funny tweet from Crash MotoGP. I don't know if you can see it, but they say same vibes and Alex Marquez and
Michael Scott.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, it appears to be that he's kind of fine. But yeah, still a very stupid move from Jorge Martin. But I haven't seen anything regarding a penalty either. So I'll be very excited. Maybe he will just sit out Jerez and then doesn't have to serve a penalty, and then move on. But yeah, also there were like 10 or 11 riders who crashed or didn't finish. I mean, we have 22 riders on the grid. 13 riders finished, and Brad Binder crashed as well, and kind of still put the bike back on his wheels and finished the race, which is like the most Brad Binder thing ever. I mean, if he crashes, he still gets some points out of it, which is incredible. But it's like it doesn't happen to Taka Nakagami, you know. It's like Brad Binder has a way of somehow getting points at the end of the season, where you're wondering how did he do that. And this is like a weekend where he made a mistake, which is rare, but he picked the bike up, got some points, so which was very good. Also, Aleix had a strange crash. He was going into turn 12, I believe, after the log straight left-hand corner. And he was going very deep into the corner. And then where you would expect a crash is like at the apex of the corner or before. But he crashed way later, which was kind of weird. He lost the front there. And he said that the rear right height device was stuck for the first lap, and that's the reason he crashed. So that's a bummer. And it's Aprilia has some work to do when something like this happens, because it's basically the worst thing that can happen, that a right height device gets stuck, because the whole balance of the bike is fucked.
Yeah.
And yeah, who else crashed? Taka Nakagami. What was fun was when Taka Nakagami crashed, he was like, "Oh, okay, here we go again." I mean, the way he walked to his bike, it's like he wasn't even angry. It was business as usual for him. And yeah, Joan Mir crashed. I don't know what happened with him, but Jack Miller, yeah, this is an interesting one, because he crashed 6 times this weekend and crashed out of podium contention, where you kind of saw it coming because he had no business being there. But apparently, the KTMs have very good starts this season. So yeah, it's good for him.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about the KTM is that maybe compared to last year, they seem to have massively improved their launch control at the start. And like you said, they seem to have these really, really good starts where they just rocket off the line somehow. So whatever they've done, kudos to them, because they've done a very good job. But yeah, as far as the crashes go, it was like a game of Crash Bandicoot. Just half the grid just ended up crashing out. I'm trying to think who else crashed. There was Bender, who somehow still got points. Miller crashed. Bagnaia crashed. Mir crashed. Nakagami crashed. Who else am I missing?
Wait a second. I have the results here. I just have to open them. Stefan Bradl crashed too, which is absolutely ridiculous, because he's a test rider and all he's doing is testing to gravel. I don't know what Honda sees in him. I don't understand it. But yeah, Jorge Martin crashed. Alex Marquez crashed. Aleix Espargaro crashed. Raul Fernandez, he had a technical issue. He didn't crash, but he didn't finish. Jack Miller crashed. Pecco crashed. Joan Mir crashed. Taka Nakagami crashed. Stefan Bradl crashed. Again, absolutely stupid. I don't know what he's doing there. And Brad Binder crashed. So yeah, if I
Wow.
was Honda, I would get a new test rider. But what's like amazing with this race, you see people like Maverick Vinales going home in fourth. I mean, it's a brilliant result when you consider all of what happened to him in the first laps, and he was like very far down the grid.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, Miguel Oliveira in fifth, who would have thought that? And Frankie in eighth. Fabio Di Gianantonio get a top 10 finish. Augusto Fernandez get a top 10 finish. Jonas Folger got points, which is amazing. Jonas Folger now has more points than Raul Fernandez. This is like the best fun fact ever. And I'm really happy for him that he stayed on the bike, did what he had to do, and got some points.
Jonas Folger took a dub this weekend. I don't care
Yeah,
what anybody says. Oh, yeah,
yeah.
Michele Pirro crashed out as well.
No, he crashed in the sprint. He
Oh,
didn't crash in the
that's
race.
right, yeah.
He finished 11th, and he has
Wow.
also more points than Raul Fernandez.
God, this is unbelievable. Yeah, it was just a bit of a madness. But what this comes back to is the point that we made again with Pecco Bagnaia at the beginning of the episode. To finish first, you have to finish first. And when you actually finish, especially this year, there's a lot more points on display and there's a lot more points available. Like Franco Morbidelli at one point was in P13. He ended up P8, solid points. Maverick Vinales P4, just outside the podium. Oliveira P5. Jonas Folger got points. If that does not tell you the importance of finishing, nothing else ever will. Jonas Folger got points. Michele Pirro finished. There is no excuse for not, unless you're Alex Marquez. There's no real excuse for finishing. If you finish, there's a lot to play for here. There's a lot at stake, and if you can finish, there are rewards there for you. Maverick Vinales has now got some brilliant points just because of his consistency and because he could finish. If you finish, the points are there to be won.
Yeah. And regarding Jack Miller and his crash, we previously said we wouldn't be mad at Alex Rins if he crashed out of P2 chasing down Pecco. But we are mad at Pecco for crashing because there was no reason for it. I mean, we are not mad at Jack Miller for crashing because he had to try and he had to put it all of his eggs in one basket and go for it. And he did. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out. But what if it did turn out to work? What if he finished like in P2 or P3 at the end of the day? He would be a hero, but there's not a lot of downside there. I mean, yes, he crashed. It kind of sucks, but it's not like he's losing the championship right now. But the upside is huge there. And
Exactly.
therefore, that's like the difference between Pecco and Jack Miller. With Pecco, the upside is not really there. I mean, a P2, P3, or whatever wouldn't hurt him at his stage when you consider all of the things going on. But Jack Miller, podium, that's huge for him.
Yeah. And even if Jack Miller crashes out, which he did, he can always go to KTM and say, look, I was in P2 or I was in P3. I was challenging for a podium. You can't ask any more. I think we both thought KTM would be a huge letdown this year, and they've had a brilliant start. And Jack Miller can always go to his fans. He can go to KTM and say, look, I'm sorry I crashed out, but look, I tried. You can't ask any more of anybody than that. He can go and he can say, listen, crashed out, always disappointing, but it's not like I crashed out challenging for P10 or just to get into the points. I was in a podium spot, I went for it. What can you do? And at the end of the day, I respect this is always the reason I respect Jack Miller. I always respect Jack Miller because he tries and he's never happy. He'll always push for what he thinks he can do. And he fell short, but look, I respect him for trying and everybody else does as well.
Yeah, and what you said earlier that KTM has figured out a way to have better starts, which is smart because when you can't figure out a way to qualify good, then you have at least have to figure out how to start well. And the KTM is not bad over race distance. Problem is like qualifying, but they kind of moved around that. They don't need a good qualifying anymore. And regarding KTM, there is this big man in this big small man in Moto2, and Pedro Acosta. He delivered an absolute banger, and my understanding is that his contract with KTM is up after the season, which should make him very happy, and KTM not. But I don't see anything from KTM where I would say, if I was Peter, where I would say, okay, I will go there. Even though the KTM has made some progress, but it's still, for KTM standards, they're good, but there are no match for Ducati, there are no match for Aprilia, and there are no match for Fabio Quartararo.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mark Marquez. So, they're still in this midfield in this weird place, but they're doing well. And but regarding Pedro, he was so incredibly good. Tony Arbolino as well. They were so on the limit. I mean, Pedro had like three mistakes, which is you don't see Pedro make mistakes when he's comfortable, like in Portimao, for example. But he was on the limit. He was giving it his all, but still, both of them were very controlled, very, very calm in being on the limit, which was very enjoyable. I mean, there aren't many races in the recent history where I had so much fun watching it because there was always this feeling, okay, it's about to go down. I mean, the race in itself, there weren't a lot of overtakes, there weren't a lot of battling, but they were all the time behind each other, and it could have gone sideways at every moment, but it also could have happened something amazing at every moment. It was so, yeah, I was glued to the TV, and it was amazing. And Pedro Acosta showed in the last lap why he is our Lord and Savior. I mean, what he did there, I got the feeling he was preparing this overtake the whole time. But yeah, he was in front, but made some mistakes because he was on the limit. Tony Arbolino made some mistakes, but it felt like he had prepared this overtake all the time because he's very fast on the straight and he's a motherfucker on the brakes. I mean, after his mistakes, where Tony Arbolino pulled like a 3/10 gap or 4/10 gap, whatever, like he made it go away this gap into turn one. Pedro was just so incredibly hard on the brakes, so good on the brakes, and incredible what this young man is doing right now. And yeah, I mean, Tony Arbolino did a almost perfect race, but Pedro Acosta was just better.
Yeah, it was genuinely phenomenal from both riders. It was phenomenal, and it was a duel befitting Texas. Ironically, it was really really good fun, and it was brilliant to watch. I got to give credit to Tony Arbolino. He handled it brilliantly. He gets a great P2. Led the race really well. Handled the pressure really well, I have to say. Tic tac Pecco Bagnaia. That's how you handle pressure when you're leading. But yeah, I got to give credit and due service to our Lord and Savior Pedro Acosta. Um, just so good in P2 as well. Never really looked like P3 was ever going to catch him. His pace was brilliant all weekend, but especially in the race. And when it came to the last few laps, you could just tell Pedro was lining it up really well. He was just sizing up each corner really well, looking at the potential overtake possibilities. And in the last lap, executed it brilliantly, safely, very entertainingly, but a great battle in Moto 2. Credit to Pedro Acosta, credit to Tony Arbolino. Those two guys will be the two fighting for the title. They will, I think, swap victories at different tracks. But I think both riders were brilliant and they were both deserving of first and second. And shout out to Bo Ben Snyder as well for the podium. He had a great race as well. Unfortunately, the broadcast didn't show us a whole lot of the battle for P3, but then the duel was so good it was worthy of watching it. But credit to all guys, they all had a brilliant race.
Yeah, it's this kind of race where you would like to have a split screen and
Yeah,
watch both, but you can't. I would have loved if they showed some replays here and there, more that you get an understanding of what happened.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't blame them too much for not showing the battle there when obviously Pedro and Tony Arbolino were going at it. So I always felt like Pedro was more in control because it felt like he was going only as fast as he needs to be,
yeah,
where Tony Arbolino was going as fast as he could go. And because when you had those mistakes from Pedro here and there, going wide, whatever, he was in the lead early, then had this false neutral, and he made some small mistakes. I believe three were where he allowed Tony Arbolino to first overtake him and then pull a little bit of a gap, and he always like closed the gap immediately, and yeah, therefore I thought he was a little bit more in control. What was odd to me when he was in front, that he didn't break away from Arbolini, because watching it, I thought, okay, if he gets in front, then he can make a little bit more of a gap, because I felt into turn one, the first sector, the S's, he was very strong. Pedro is very, very capable on the brakes. I mean, he is an absolute motherfucker. And in Cota, there are some heartbreaking points. He is very fast on the straight, but it felt like Tony Arbolino was just good enough in small parts of the track where he could pull this much of a gap where Pedro couldn't just overtake him. But it also felt like Pedro didn't want to take too much of a risk, because we saw what happened with Pecco later on, and you don't want to throw away 20 points. And this maturity, this intelligence he put on, he had there, was amazing. And also Tony Arbolini, he could have launched a very, very ambitious overtake into the last corner, but Pedro was already defending on the more or less middle of the track, and he chose the outside line because that's a smart line, because there is a possibility of Pedro compromising his exit and therefore he overtaking him, like we saw in Moto3 with Jaume Masia and Diogo Moreira, where Diogo Moreira was defending, Jaume Masia still made it work inside, and Diogo Moreira's exit was severely compromised, so Javier Tigas could finish on the podium. And Tony Aboli was banking on this. Didn't work out, but it was the smart decision. Instead of forcing an overtake inside where there is no way of them making the corner, like David Munoz dive bombing into there. Both were very smart, very calm, very collected, but still utterly amazing. So fast, head and shoulders above everybody else. I really enjoyed watching it. It was so good.
Yeah, it was brilliant from beginning to end. And that's why we can justify the broadcast focusing on both of them, because they were both literally head and shoulders above every other rider on the grid. And I think with Pedro Acosta, you made a point at the beginning of your sort of analysis. There was never a point during that race where I was worried Pedro Acosta was too far behind or that he wouldn't overtake, because if for someone who's 18, 19 years old, the maturity and development he's gone through is phenomenal. He looks like he is a world champion, but he looks like a MotoGP world champion in Moto2 already, and it's very rare that you see that. And it's very rare you see the maturity of someone who not only can deliver phenomenal overtaking, but do it so safely and measured as well. That's a pretty rare combination, but a very spectacular one when it's done right. And Pedro Acosta does it right. And like I said, I've got to give credit to Tony Arbolino as well, because he showed a lot of maturity too, picked the right lines, had a very good race. And when Pedro did overtake, he didn't compromise the race. He didn't try and slam back in to get the win. He was willing to take P2. He goes on to fight strongly in Jerez. And we just had a great, great, solid race. That's all you can ask for ultimately.
Yeah. And regarding P3, I'm very happy Bob Snyder got it. Deservingly first podium. And with all the personal issues he had to deal with, his grandfather passed away recently. So very happy for him that he managed to pull it off. And you could see how much it meant to him. So yeah, but I'm sadly not too familiar with everything that happened there with Fermin Aldeguer, and somehow Jeremy Alcoba was in there. So I don't know if there's maybe on the video pass some kind of angle where you can see it from onboard better on what actually went down there. I would love to see it, but yeah, the result is very satisfying to me, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the team, because like Indonesia is a big market, and the Indonesian team getting a podium, it's good for the sport. And I hope that we see many more of this, because it's refreshing to see different faces there.
Yeah, it is refreshing, and it's refreshing to see those battles and to see new people on the podium all the time. It makes the sport better, and it makes the class better as well. And I think this is what you see with Moto2 very well. There's a very fresh recycling of seeing the new talent competing at the front, getting the podiums, and then being in those battles with those people. Like we see with Tony Arbolino and Pedro Acosta, you see that refreshingness of someone like Pedro, for example, who maybe wins a lot of races but does it in a very entertaining way. He keeps it fresh because he's in battles with other strong competitors in the class. So really happy for all the guys, especially happy for Bo Ben Snyder, because to get your maiden podium is very special, of that I'm sure. And to do it at Austin's pretty cool as well. So it's something he'll always remember too. But this was a good day. This was a good weekend for Moto 2. Very good, entertaining, safe riding, and it's really set the standard. So credit to all of them.
Yeah, this weekend once again brings me to my suggestion that they delay the broadcast on like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatsoever. So let's say Tony Arbolino and Pedro Acosta are just riding behind each other for 2 laps, but shit is hitting the fan in the battle for P3. I understand that you don't want to miss anything which could happen on the front, but if you are aware of what happens there, then you can safely go to P3 and say, okay, when they are battling or when something happens, we will switch back in time. But then, as far as they're just lapping behind each other, that they can show the battle for P3. And during Portimao, they showed this kind of split screen where they had at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, they had a smaller frame where they showed a little bit of a different battle on track while showing the lead. I would have wished something like this where you could see. I mean, let's say the battle of P3 where shit is hitting the fan, they show this on full screen, but you still get on the quarter of the screen, you see Pedro and Tony Arbolino going at it. So this would have been refreshing to see. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't mind watching Pedro Acosta for like 16 or 18 laps or whatever they were doing there. So I'm not too mad at it. But yeah, I still would have wanted to get a little bit more insight on what exactly happened there in the battle of P3. And also Alonso Lopez was kind of strange because we saw it already in Argentina. Alonso Lopez tries or likes to take wider lines, apparently to make the Boscoscuro work better, which is obviously fine because when you have to ride the bike this way, do it in order to be fast. But we saw that he was overshooting in Argentina a couple of corners, and he did it again in Austin. So I don't necessarily know what's up with his braking, but he needs to fix this because when you are in the battle and you take already these wide lines, you can't afford to make any mistakes because you leave so much space on the inside. I don't know if he had some kind of problem. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, a little bit strange.
Very strange. Very strange indeed. I think it's just a one off for Alonso Lopez. He's proven his quality, and I think he'll be back very strong in Jerez. I actually think he could challenge for the podium in Jerez.
Yeah, Alonso Lopez is a motherfucker, A, and B, he's still a rookie on those tracks, you know. He never raced in Portimao on a Moto2 bike. He never raced in Argentina on a Moto2 bike. He never raced in Austin on a Moto2 bike. He never raced in Jerez on a Moto2 bike, and further down the road, he never raced in Indonesia on a Moto2 bike. So we still have to take this into consideration. And when we come to Le Mans, where maybe he can use the data of last year and improve on what he did there last year, where he was really strong, then we can basically see Alonso Lopez on another level, I believe, because he has all the talent in the world. It's so exciting to see him ride. And yeah, he's also a fun character. So yeah, we love Alonso Lopez here, and I'm very convinced that he will show again how great he truly is on different tracks this season. But it's still only his first Moto2 race on the track, so everything is fine, I guess.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can't expect him to go out whenever you have someone like Pedro Acosta and Tony Arbolino. You can't expect him to go out and win on a track he's never been on before. It's a good learning experience for him, and I think next year you'll see him very strong on these tracks he's never been on before. So, good learning experience.
Yeah. And in Moto 3, we had a tailwind. So basically, all slipstream was non existent. And it made for a very unusual Moto 3 race, I'm sorry. Because during like the first the first lap, shit was hitting the fan like usual, but then everything kind of sorted it out. There was this leading group. Ayumu Sasaki was leading, and then he crashed, and then for the last 5 laps, shit was hitting the fan again. So it was a very calm race, but very enjoyable. I liked it a lot. I like it more than the more chaotic Moto3 races. Um, but yeah, Ayumu Sasaki, I have no clue what's up with him. For some reason, he has to always fuck up the beginning of the season where he puts himself into a shitty position, considering that he wants to win the title. But yeah, same crash as in Argentina, high sided out of a very good position. And yeah, I don't know what's up with him.
Yeah, I mean, I just live for Moto 3 at this point, you know, just it's like that meme from The Simpsons, just hook it to my veins. This is what Moto 3 is. Yeah, you make a great point. There was a tailwind at the beginning of the race, which meant slipstream just wasn't there, which is basically what Moto 3 lives and dies on most days. But it made for a great race. It really, really did. Ivan Ortola nearly died at the beginning. He nearly wiped himself out and half of the grid with it, going into turn one or two. But yeah, it was a brilliant, brilliant race. Ayumu Sasaki led for most of it. Jaume Masia was in the mix for the win. It was a really good race. And then Ayumu Sasaki, like you say, I don't know what is up with him at all. I really, really don't. He finds himself in these great positions, but then throws it away. It's really, really weird. It's almost like for some reason he just doesn't have the belief that he can win these races. He looked really, really strong for 2/3 of the race, leading most of it. And then high sides out of like I think it was a turn 14 or 15. He just completely threw it away. And then the race was pretty much carnage until the very end. So it certainly wasn't your usual Moto 3 race, but it was a very pleasant change, to be fair.
Yeah, and Ivan Ortola, absolutely crazy
Wow.
what he did. I mean, he was gone at it was turn two, and I don't know if he touched the white line, but he was gone. The bike was sideways. I don't know how he stayed on the bike, then went back to whatever he outside the points. I could assume, but I don't know. He was further down the grid, probably battling ass man, and
Oh boy.
um, and then made his way through. I mean, Pedro Acosta in Qatar made it similar but better, but it was this great. I mean, incredible how he sliced through the field there, and made everyone look stupid. So incredibly good. And when shit was hitting the fan at the end of the race, then he was in the front group there leading, and he took it home. I was so happy for him. Yeah,
Yeah,
really, really amazing.
yeah, that was great. And I mean, I just cannot get over how he didn't die at the beginning of the race. You know, that is a man that definitely had a little bit of poop going into his leathers,
Yeah,
because I would have completely shitted if it was me. But yeah, I'm so happy for Ivan Ortola because he's had such a strong start to the season, and it did kind of feel like watching the first few rounds of Moto 3 that Ortola could be a real contender this year. He started really strong. He's just had a great momentum, and to keep in with that pack around the front five, front six, around the Xavi Artigas sort of area, it was very smart from Ortola. He played it very well. And then when Sasaki fucked it up, he took his opportunity with both hands, and now he can say that he is a race winner at Coda. So it was a great race. Incredibly happy for Ivan Ortola because he deserves it. He really does. And it was great to see such a young, talented rider basically use the Pedro Acosta method to get himself to the front. So great, great race.
yeah, and it was so good. I watched the last 5 laps today at breakfast again because
Nice.
yeah, it was really nice. So I mean, with Javier Tigas, you mentioned him again. He's so tall and in such an unfortunate position for the class. He should really go to Moto2 because he is not built for Moto3. But as soon as slipstream's out of the window and all the straight line speed is battered due to the tailwind, then all of a sudden he's there again. And he showed how good he really is. And he is really somebody I would like to see in Moto2. And I'm happy for him that he got the podium. But we were in a position where everybody kind of deserved it. Jaume Masia was very unlucky with the Ayumu Sasaki crash. I thought, okay, shit, here we go again. But he managed to close the gap and finish an incredible P2. The move he put on Moreira in the last corner was absolutely amazing, like Sergio Garcia last year and Dennis Foggia in Argentina, where it's so clean but so aggressive at the same time. Diogo Moreira was covering the inside as far as you can, but somehow he still manages to push through and didn't compromise his exit. Diogo Moreira somehow, or not some, Diogo Moreira was suffering under this because he lost the podium. He should have gotten onto under the podium there, but still very, very amazing overtake. Jaume Masia showed how good he really is today, and I really would like to see more of this because Jaume Masia is such an incredible rider, but he has this Maverick Vinales thing going on where he's good on one weekend, bad on the other, then he's good and then bad and then good and then bad. So yeah, I would like to see more of this because Jaume Masia is such a pleasant to watch when he's good.
Yeah, Jaume Masia was great, I have to say. And like you said, that move on Diogo Moreira was one of the best things I've ever seen. It was such a fine line between disaster and genius. And he treaded that line so well. So, Jaume Masia, if you somehow end up watching this, massive props to you for that because that was brilliant. It really, really was. Just to touch on Javi Artigas briefly, you made a great point. Very good race, but he does have this unfortunate affliction of being tall in Moto 3. You know, he looks like Mr. Incredible on the Moto 3 bike. And it's a shame because Artigas is such a naturally good rider, but his height, like you said, he really should go to Moto 2 because being tall in Moto 3 is a nightmare. Trying to hunch yourself back onto that tiny little bike to try and stay with everybody else. But Artigas had a great race. Really happy for him. But Jaume Masia, what a move. It was just so well done.
Also, Diogo Moreira in the last lap, out of sector 1, he was fourth. Then he made this incredible move into what, like, I don't know. Cota has too many turns. I can't remember. But he made this move on Jaume Masia. Incredible. He came from kind of nowhere. He came from buttfuck nowhere and then made it stick on the inside without being too aggressive again. Then into the hairpin before the long straight. He overtook, I believe, two guys there. Didn't compromise his exit. Was so good and kind of positioned himself in a track where they couldn't overtake him back. So he eliminated this old switcheroo. And unfortunately, it didn't pay out for him. But incredible how good Diogo Moreira is. I really enjoy watching him. And I would like to give him a shout out for his qualifying because he was in a good position in qualifying. And his first sector was like 2/10 too slow. So he had a gray sector and everybody was following him. So what did he? He slowed down just enough so nobody could penalize him for it, but he finished the lap with like plus 2 seconds and fucked up everybody else's lap behind him. It was so hilarious. I mean, Moto3 is all about slipstream, and when you pull the Uno reserve card on them, it's always funny. And I'm very happy for Diogo Moreira. He's very consistent. He's good. This is exactly what you need in Moto3. And same with Daniel Algado. Daniel Algado was very, how do you say, very quiet. And but still did everything right he needed to do. Apparently, it was not his weekend where he couldn't challenge for the win, but he took the points, lived to fight for another day. didn't do anything stupid. So yeah, Daniel Gardo and Yogo Moreira really emerge as those championship contenders who are fast but consistent, who are smart. Uh, Basically everything that David Munoz isn't. So he somehow sent, I believe, Stefano Nepa was it, into the stratosphere with this. I don't know what he was thinking there, but yeah, David Munoz deserves a race ban at this point because he is so reckless, he's so stupid, and whatever is going on inside his head, they need to shake him really hard and hope it falls out because he is fast, yes, but he's so stupid and he's dangerous. He's so dangerous for everybody else. I mean, Stefano Nepa, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was Stefano Nepa. He was flying 3 air like 3, 4, 5 meters. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. It's not like, I mean, Jorge Martin's move looked incredible in comparison to this because at least he just took the front and he couldn't do it. But David Munoz was flying into the corner, never gonna make it, and yeah, he sent Stefano Nepa flying.
David
Incredibly stupid.
David Munoz needs that crew chief from last year to kick him on
Yeah,
camera and give him a
yeah,
kick up the ass because I
yeah.
don't know what he was. I mean, I think of David Munoz's head, it's that little chimp with the symbol, like from The
Mm,
Simpsons. I think that's his brain whenever he's riding on track. But yeah, he definitely needs something. Just give him something, Dorna, because he needs punishment because that's just unbelievable. Um, On to the other two riders. Danny Holgado deserves a big shout out. He's been brilliant. Really good start to the season. Fast, consistent, strong. Everything you want to see, he has got. Diogo Moreira, though, I just love watching this kid. He is so good. He's so talented. It's unbelievable. And that move during qualifying, this deserves an honorable mention because that was the most top G move I've ever seen in my life. That was, I mean, everybody following you and you intentionally fuck your own lap just to fuck with everybody else. That was if we have like a G of the week moment, like a Bad MotoGP award, you deserve a Diogo Moreira because that was so funny to watch everybody else get so pissed off because he intentionally tanked his own lap to screw with everyone else. That was the embodiment of the bad MotoGP spirit. That was meme in
yeah,
real life. Diogo Moreira, hats off to you because that was just one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
yeah. He was. I feel like Diogo Moreira is in a position where he's so comfortable right now that he can play with his competition a little
Yeah,
bit. And that's hilarious to see. Pedro Acosta was doing the same in Moto3. It was so funny. And yeah, I really hope that he can continue this. He's very consistent. His trajectory is up, and same with Daniel Agado, very very smart. And I'm very excited for the European races because that's where you really know what's going on, especially in Moto3, because the overseas races are always a little bit strange. Let's take Rueda as an example. It could be that he wipes the floor with everybody in Europe because he's familiar on those tracks. He knows how to do it there. But yeah, it's a new track for him in on the overseas races. So I'm very excited for Europe. I'm very excited to see what's going on. I must say, this weekend was incredible, especially Moto3 and Moto2 was so good. MotoGP, I feel like was a boring race in itself. We saw like no overtakes except Marini on Quartararo, but it was somehow still entertaining because everybody was crashing and Alex Rins was leading. Like if you said before we started recording, if Pecco was leading the race, we would say, "Oh, what a boring race." But because Alex Rins was being so awesome, and Pecco fucked it up, everybody crashed, and yeah, it was still a level of excitement there, but I feel like it's not a level of excitement because what was happening. It was because who was in the position they were, you know.
yeah.
And I really enjoyed this, but I would like to see some more overtakes and more racing, like we saw in Moto2 and Moto3, because these two races were absolutely incredible. I really loved them, and I can't wait to see more. Like the Dave Chappelle meme. You get any more of these Moto2 and Moto3 races? Yeah,
Yeah, there's actually still I'm just referencing a point we made earlier about Yamaha's lack of rear grip. Someone made that Dave Chappelle meme back when Valentino was racing, and it was Valentino as Dave Chappelle saying, "Hey, y'all get any more of that rear grip?"
yeah.
And it's still true. But yeah, it's been a brilliant race weekend. I really, really enjoyed Austin. I always enjoy when we go to Austin because we always get great racing. Unless Mark Marquez is there, in which case that's just a different conversation. But yeah, it's been a brilliant weekend. Moto 3 and Moto 2 were some of the most fun races I've seen in a while. I'm looking forward to going back to Europe, though. I think Jerez will be a really good race, hopefully. And I'm looking forward to the rest of them. So yeah, thank you, Austin. And I look forward to next year. Hopefully, I might even go there. Who knows?
Like when we go to Germany and Mark Marquez is racing, we should give him the opportunity. Either you start on pole and win the race, or you start from the pit lane, and wherever you finish, you get double the points. So
Ah, yeah.
where like when you're fourth, you get 26 points. So as soon as you are fourth, third, second, or first, you get double the points, so everything is fine. But as when you are not, when you are fifth or lower, you lose out. So this would add a little bit of an excitement, which would be fun.
You're
But
trying to make Mark worse. Can you imagine what it'd be like if that was the case? He'd kill everyone else.
yeah, but apparently Donna doesn't want to earn money. This would be the best race ever.
Oh wow, that would be like Phillip Island in
Yeah,
2015 with every race ever. That would be so much fun. Could you
or like
imagine that in Moto 3?
or like put Fabio on a Ducati for 2 weekends and put Pecco on a Yamaha for 2 weekends and see what happens.
Oh, that would be phenomenal.
Okay, we'll see each other again in Jerez. I'm trying to make something work for next week where we have no races because MotoGP obviously they have a new chief commercial officer and Maddie Patterson now,
Hmm.
former Scotia. She's a MotoGP reporter, and I met her. We're cool, I would assume, and she knows a thing or two about marketing and all of this stuff. And I would like to talk to her about all of this. Commercial stuff because she's the expert there. I'm not. I have a lot of ideas on what I would do if I would be running MotoGP, but yeah, maybe they're not as realistic as maybe hers. So I would like to talk to her about it and discuss all of it. I wanted to do it last week, but with the overseas races and she's over there, I don't know if this was possible. So yeah, I will ask her if she wants to do it, and if she does, then I have this episode I just described ready for next week. Hopefully, if everything works out. But yeah, and next weekend, I believe I will have to check my calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
next weekend we'll be in Assen for World Superbike, so I'm excited to see it, and I will tell you all about it when we see each other again.
absolutely. Please do. We need the Remy catch up. See how he's doing.
Yes, open paddock, so I will have to buy a gift for him or something, which I can bring into the paddock.
Nice.
Okay, goodbye, Keelan. Thank you very much for joining me, and we will see each other after Jerez.
Absolutely. Thank you as always, Leo. Thank you everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I always enjoy when we go to Austin, as you can tell, and I look forward to catching you all in the next one.
Goodbye.